We've been coming across the phrase harvest now, decrypt later in a lot of the research for this episode. Sounds ominous, but walk us through what actually means and who's doing it.
As quantum computers become more prevalent or more available, if we capture network traffic today, we may find very usable things or valuable things in it. Now, this is usually from state actors, organized crime elements, or the intelligence community, or even the military. But the intent there is to be able to capture network traffic and be able to store it until those quantum computers are viable, and then use it to break that traffic.
In the world of technology, heroes are everywhere. They're overcoming disruption, delivering sustainable outcomes, and fearlessly forging the future to solve what's next. Join me, Ed McNamara, as we meet the people and businesses driving change in our constantly disruptive world. This is Innovation Heroes, a podcast brought to you by SHI. Every bit of encrypted data, your bank transactions, your company's intellectual property, your confidential communications, is protected by cryptographic algorithms that have kept us safe for half a century. There's just one problem. Quantum computers are about to make all of it obsolete. Now, before your eyes glaze over, this isn't another quantum is coming hype piece. This is about something happening right now. Nation-states are harvesting encrypted traffic today, just waiting for quantum computers powerful enough to decrypt it tomorrow. And the timeline? It's much shorter than you think. Federal agencies have mandates that started December 1st of 2025. They say that critical infrastructure needs to be quantum ready by 2030. So how worried should you be? More importantly, what should you be doing about it? Today, we're sitting down with Brad Bowers, SHI's lead field chief information security officer. Brad has been in the trenches with SHI customers, from multinational telecoms to defense contractors and federal agencies, helping them navigate this transition. Brad's going to translate the quantum threat into something IT leaders can actually act on. From understanding what crypto agility means to figuring out if your organization needs to care about this right now or 5 years from now. So let's dive in. Brad, welcome to Innovation Heroes.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks for having me.
What exactly is the quantum computing threat to encryption, and why should business and IT leaders care about it right now?
To do this justice, we probably need to talk a little bit about just how quantum computers are different. Our computers that we leverage now use a 0 or 1 to kind of emphasize the data that is being used. Quantum computers use something called a qubit. Very analogous, still 0 and 1, but quantum computers are different. They allow the ability to be in multiple states of 0 or 1. Superposition is what they kind of call it. But this makes them uniquely adept at being able to do parallel processing. And for our discussion around cryptography, makes them very, very effective for dealing with or decrypting our cryptography that we use today for all of our business stuff. We're using encryption technology today that has been around for 40, 50 years. And while it's been very, very effective, we've come kind of addicted to it. It is so now embedded into our business apps, into our network technology, into all the things that we do, from our financial transactions to protection of our medical records, including intellectual property and state secrets and everything else. So because quantum is able to go after these encryption algorithms, what we thought used to take 1,000 years to decrypt now can be done in minutes to hours. What it results in is means that we need to be taking a look at how cryptography is being used within our businesses and within our applications, and start to plan around how we're going to move to quantum resilient or crypto resiliency, and leveraging algorithms that can be a better defense against quantum computers, especially as they become more prevalent.
We've been coming across the phrase harvest now, decrypt later in a lot of the research for this episode. It sounds ominous, but walk us through what actually means and who's doing it. Harvest now, decrypt later.
Yeah, so the intent of this is as quantum computers become more prevalent or more available, that if we capture network traffic today, we may find very usable things or valuable things in it. Now, this is usually from state actors, organized crime elements, or the intelligence community, or even the military. But the intent there is to be able to capture network traffic and be able to store it until those quantum computers are viable and then use it to break that traffic. If you look at this from kind of the intellectual property perspective, it becomes very clear why this would be valuable. Let's take an example like Apple. Think about all the engineering, something like 1 million man hours a year of engineering and refinement and development goes into it.
Yep.
But when you take that development, you put it into documents, or you put the source code for the products into files, and you move those files across the network, you don't really need a lot of network traffic to be able to get some potentially very sensitive data.
Mm.
And we have choke points. So there's this thinking around that if someone was able to capture our network traffic, it really wouldn't do them any good because it's encrypted. And let's be honest, the network and internet is so vast, you wouldn't be able to do it. But when you step back and actually look at how traffic traverses to, let's say, Europe or to Asia Pac, or even within the United States, there are a relatively small number of choke points that provide the bulk of that network traffic. Nation states have been able to collect or harvest data, basically eavesdrop or tap on those lines. So when you put it in the context of sensitive data, such as financials, banks use the SWIFT network to communicate with each other. Imagine if they're able to collect some of that data and at a later date be able to decrypt it. Very, very valuable. Intellectual property, very valuable. And this is something that we know is going on today, and we suspect that it's even going to increase with the nation-state actors and even organized crime elements.
In layman's terms, I'm just hearing like, if I know I'm going to get the code to a safe 7 years from now, I can wait, right? But I can take it now, and I know I'm going to get that code. That's really, really fascinating. Are they just taking a gamble? Like, how would they know what's valuable and what's not? Are they just like, hey, we're going to spend some money, we're going to store as much of this information as we could take now, thinking that we're going to be able to crack this code later on?
It's a lot more simple than that than you may think. So
wow.
It really
Okay.
comes down to the IP addresses and just knowing what IP addresses are owned by who, which is readily available to all of us on the internet, right? So we can tell, using our Apple example or a specific bank, we can tell what IPs they own. We can look at traffic for that. And we know what's going on. If you look at Tor or I2P sites, aka dark web sites, there's already packet captures or PCAPs that are available for people to download and to play with. So we know this is going on. And the thought has always been, it doesn't matter because we have crypto that's going to take care of it. It's going to hide it. But now with the prevalence of quantum and as they're maturing and becoming more available, now it becomes a bigger risk. And companies and governments are really starting to think about, what does that mean? What sensitive data do they have? And adding to the element, Ed, here of just think about how all interconnected we are now. And normal organizations got data, obviously locally within their own data centers, but they're almost certainly leveraging cloud, SaaS solutions. They're sharing data with partners. They're sharing data with customers. All of those are encryption points that starts to make this problem much, much bigger. Because now we need to know, what crypto are we using? Where is our data going? How is it encrypted? Who's touching it? Where are the keys kept? It becomes a very big challenge for the cybersecurity professionals that are looking at this. And as part of what's driving the notion of responding to it now versus to waiting until quantum computers are available for everybody.
How close are we to having these machines be powerful enough to break today's encryption?
Today, I think the total number of stable qubits that we've seen in like highly done researched labs is still relatively small. So is it powerful enough to be able to use to do kind of practical decryption of internet traffic or captured traffic? The answer is no, but it's not far away. So we expect that probably within the next couple of years on the far side that the technology will be mature enough and able to be used by threat actors, nation states, and others to do that decryption. And it's not just them. So you can actually right now Go out and get a free account with IBM, with AWS, Bracket, I think they call it, or Google Quantum, and play around with quantum computers. You can test code, you can write things. So this technology is here today. It's just a matter of how it's being developed and how fast it will grow.
So everybody has to prioritize things, and which kind of like sectors or verticals like are targets. You mentioned before about like, we all know the domains and the addresses of who we as bad actors, if we were bad actors, would be interested in, right? But you work with everyone from defense contractors to retailers. How do you determine like who's already dealing with this versus who can wait, or like, do you as a cybersecurity professional say, okay, you fall into this category, like you are going to be at the tip of the spear, like when this happens?
Yeah, so the government's pretty much build out a roadmap, if you will, for what they're doing. And this is really focused on more the federal government and more, we'll say, military and DoD side. But it starts to expand quickly when you think who supports and provides products to the government and DoD. Oh, it's all the same companies that we use for our clients, from the very small to the very large enterprise. Key pieces that have come up right now have been for federal institutions. So expand that out. Think about our critical infrastructure businesses, the telcos, the financial institutions, the technology companies, the power industry, and things like that. All of them now have a mandate as well. And I've been fortunate enough to see what some of these groups are doing, and they're moving in the right direction. They're taking it, very seriously, but at the same time, they're also looking at this as, where do we prioritize and what do we do first? Well, everybody's kind of going in their own directions on that. But key infrastructure or critical infrastructure, of which there's, I believe, 13 groups, but it's the ones you would expect: medical, financial, telco, the transportation industry. They are kind of on the tip of the spear, as you had mentioned, and they have mandates and expectations that they have quantum resilient solutions and are implementing crypto resiliency, if you will, quantum resiliency into their products within only just a couple years. And I think over time, we'll see that kind of roll down into the broader industries. Everybody needs to be addressing it, but the time that they have right now depends on where they're at. And again, I think the government and anybody who does support for them, they're first out of the gate. Second out of the gate is critical infrastructure.
Yep.
But when you start to look at just how interconnected we all are, that very quickly expands out. And even small companies will start to feel the pinch of this and the need to get a plan and to be actioning their environment to be able to support against crypto or quantum-based attacks.
What makes quantum computers so good at breaking encryption that has been a great defense for 50 years? And all the technology that's come up until then is now going to be made moot, but why now?
Part of this is just that quantum computers are very good at doing that parallel processing, and that whole thing of around how qubits can be in multiple states. That is a big key piece to this equation, but it's also around just how these legacy crypto algorithms were designed. They were meant and developed at a time where you could multiply two prime numbers together and factor out. It would make it very easy to create keys, but very difficult to actually figure out what those keys were. Not the case with quantum. In fact, there's something called Shor's algorithm that they've been leveraging to try to figure out, okay, we know quantum computers are coming. What algorithms should we be using? And, good old IT and the cyber community, we always find ways of keeping it interesting. But they're calling the leading ones right now Crystal Kyber, as kind of a pull from the Star Wars genre, if you will. And there's even other new algorithms that are out there that are associated with the Trekkies and the Star Trek world. Mm-hmm. But what's going on now is a evaluation from NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, try to figure out what the next algorithm should be. Because when they run this Shor algorithm, which is basically a test to see how strong any algorithm is against a crypto-based attack or a quantum-based attack, they're finding that they fall down very quickly.
Oh, wow.
Again, back to that, what used to be 1,000 years now can be done in minutes to hours. So the idea of crypto agility is really where things are at. That means that as a new firewall or router comes out, the manufacturers, let's look at Cisco, Palo, or Fortinet, as they start to build their next-gen technology, they must be able to build it in a manner that allows for the algorithm to be replaced relatively seamlessly. That's really tough when you start to think about that broadly, because we've had these legacy algorithms in our business apps, hard-coded in some instances, for decades. So changing them over and getting everybody talking on the same language, it's a heavy, heavy lift, especially when you start to look at just how interconnected everything is.
So in terms of the solution, during our pre-interview, you mentioned post-quantum cryptography and crypto agility. What do those terms mean and in operational terms for an IT organization?
Yeah, so the post-quantum cryptography is really kind of looking at it from the standpoint of, hey, how can we use some of these new technologies now that quantum computers are going to enable things to be done faster? Can we use it to better secure our communications, our networks, our data? And then the crypto agility really comes into that ability to put or replace an algorithm out very quickly to support as we learn more and as the speed of quantum computers continues to grow in an exponential fashion. The notion here is really going to come down to how quantum computers can be used and how available and really how complex it will be to change things out. And I've been looking at this with some of the financials, with some of the telcos, some of the government supporting agencies, and they are all like, it's a heavy lift. So we need to have both that ability to swap these things out relatively quickly. And that all starts with knowing what and where do we use it today. And even that question is a tough one for IT professionals and leaders within companies to answer.
What's the first step towards meeting those parameters that have to be met by 2030, according to the new mandates?
Yeah, so the first thing is really doing that discovery or understanding where the data is, how it's being used, where crypto is and how that's being leveraged, and really the strength and susceptibility of that crypto to quantum computers. From there, it comes down to understanding the infrastructure and really building a roadmap or a plan. A common thing that I've been getting asked from the organizations that I support is, can you help us understand how big the problem is for us? And every business is unique. And while certain industries will have more aggressive drivers than others, for instance, we know those critical infrastructure ones, they won't have till 2030. They'll probably have till 2020, late 2027 into 2028 to have their solutions up to speed and be able to be resilient from a quantum perspective, while other organizations may have a little bit more time. But the net of it is understanding where it's being used, understanding what technologies are in place. Since we know quantum cryptography is going to be a heavier lift from a CPU and RAM perspective, we need to be doing smart planning. Does the infrastructure that we have in place today, will it support a crypto resilient type of algorithm, or will we need to replace it? Nobody's going to want to replace our hardware right away. And this is why we see a lot of the vendors asking the question, hey, you got to be doing this today. You got to be planning for it. And they're absolutely right. They do need to be planning ahead, because if there are things like hardware replacements that need to be done or new applications that need to be redeveloped or altered in some way, those take time, and they want to have that roadmap that is based on what should be a priority for their unique business written out so they can start to follow it.
So let's talk about what SHI's role is in this. So, if someone listening needs help, what does SHI offer you and your team? What do we offer around quantum readiness, and what's the best way to engage?
Yeah. So the first piece has been around the advisory elements of this, really just sharing awareness of where quantum computers are, what the risk really is, and helping them be able to articulate it to their executive leadership or board around why an investment should be made or why they need to at least start planning now. The next part has been around more of the hands-on technical components. We've been asked and we've been helping organizations actually take a look or a discovery, if you will, of their environment, their apps, their network infrastructure technologies, their cloud partners, and even the third parties and suppliers that they leverage and SaaS solutions, things like that. Getting their hands around all of the data, where encryption is being used, and where may be the most susceptible. From that, it's helping build a plan out. And we've been doing a bit of that. The next piece is really helping to do that transition. Now, some of the organizations we've been supporting are on kind of the bleeding edge of this. They're actually implementing technology or getting ready to implement the technologies to use the next gen algorithms, these Kyber crystals, if you will, or Kyber as it's being called, and any other new one, testing it so they can be on the forefront of offering the latest crypto technology into products. We see a lot of the tech manufacturers doing this as well. Another way we've been helping out is really from a lab perspective. A part of this is being able just to validate what a bigger key being used from a crypto perspective or a different algorithm, what does that mean in the daily operations for their business? How much of an impact would it have on their environment? We're able to leverage our lab environment to kind of emulate those unique characteristics for a specific organization and test them out and give them that perception of what a different type of algorithm or changes would mean to them and how it would impact their business, their infrastructure, their applications.
So in terms of some of the infrastructure that we can offer to customers, I mean, is this expensive for them to research? Like, is there value that SHI has through the AI and cyber labs or some of those mid-sized and smaller companies? Is it costly to start to build this plan out?
No, in fact, usually some of the ones that I've been supporting are generalized conversations. And a lot of it comes down to awareness, understanding what the risk is. We've all been hearing about quantum for a few years now.
Yep.
Putting it really into context and outlining or documenting what the risk really means to them, to their industry, and to a specific business themselves is really crucial here. And there's not really a cost to that. It's something we do all the time for just talking to customers. It's when documenting the plan and then operationalizing that plan. That's where it gets time evasive. That's where it becomes more of a challenge because for some organizations, it'll be a relatively light lift. They'll be able to migrate things over relatively smoothly. They'll wait for their cloud provider to make some of the transitions and inherit some of the controls from them. For other organizations, it won't be that simple. In fact, for most, it will probably be challenging just to get their hands around how big of a problem it will be and building that prioritization, if you will, or that roadmap of what to go after first. For some, it's going to be a heavier lift where the infrastructure that is in place, whether it be the servers, the routers, or just how the applications interact with things, that requires them to invest in new hardware to support the new CPU and RAM utilization requirements that are going to be needed to support a crypto or quantum resilient solution. Those are ones where it becomes more time important and also more planning is needed to be done. And the lab has been a big help on this because it allows us to test various products, not just quantum products, because there's a bunch that have been coming out in this space, but really test a blended piece of what an organization may have today and how something new like a quantum resilient solution for communication or for generating digital certificates or for the authentication piece to all this, how it would work and how it would be integrated. The lab allows us to do it and help out these organizations without impeding or putting too much pressure on them to focus on standing up the environment and getting the testing done. we can take that workload piece. And it helps them to move along in their plan a bit faster.
So last question, and it's a bit of a philosophical one. This took 50 years for our current encryption to become, obsolete. Not yet, but it's that's what we're forecasting, right? So once we fix, encryption to make it quantum ready, are we going to have to do this over again in a few years, and then there's super quantum or whatever the next term is that comes out and kind of breaks puts a monkey wrench in our plans as well? Once we do this quantum ready fix, what happens then?
It's a great question. It's one of those look into the crystal ball and kind of make a guess here.
Yeah.
I don't suspect that we'll see a perpetual hit around quantum that requires organizations or requires all of us to worry about it again. It'll be incremental changes. We've just had these legacy algorithms for so long that we've become dependent on them. The new quantum resilient algorithms that are being tested, like Kyber Crystal, like other versions of Kyber that are being used, or other derivatives of it, so to speak, the change will be incremental. So I don't predict we'll have some massive change again required in a few years.
Right.
This will be what takes us into the future, probably for a good bit of time going forward.
Absolutely. Well, just want to say huge thanks to Brad Bowers for translating quantum threats into something we can actually act on. If you want to explore what quantum readiness looks like for your organization, reach out to your SHI team or connect with Brad and his fellow field CIOs who are helping organizations navigate this transition every day. And for those of you who are thinking, I'll worry about this in 2029, just remember, adversaries and bad actors are already collecting your encrypted traffic. The quantum computers that can decrypt it are coming faster than you think, so start planning now or start planning your explanation on why you didn't later. I'm Ed McNamara. This is Innovation Heroes. We'll see you next time. Brad Bowers, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.